After Jesus had finished all these things, and hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum, and there was a sinner there had a slave whom he highly valued. And when he heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders to him, asking him to come and heal his slave. When they came to Jesus, they appeared to him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy of having you do this for him, for he loves our people, and it is he who built our synagogue for us." And was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you, but only say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I am a man set under authority with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes. And to my slaves, do this, and the slave does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd that followed him, he said, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." When those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the slave in good health. For the time that is mine, I would like to tag this text with the sermonic title, "Say the Word." Look at your neighbor and just say the word. Thank you so much. Just say the word. Say the word. One of the barriers to us becoming all that God has made us to be is our lack of faith. These few weeks I've been talking about the central qualities that are necessary for us to touch the heart of God. And we have examined how faith is one of those qualities. We've said in earlier sermons that we are living in a generation that has lost its faith. It has lost faith in the church. And it's a sad state of reality when a person's word is no longer his or her bond. It comes to a matter of commitment. How committed are you to following through what God has set before you? There are some folk who are committed as long as the road seemingly is easy, they'll be there. There's some folk who are committed as long as I can benefit from your service. There's some folk who are committed as long as the sun is shining and it's not too hot at the church, I'll be there. But today I want to challenge you to examine your commitment to God. Can you be committed to God when it seems like all hell is breaking loose? Can you be committed to God when it seems like God is just not going to answer your prayer? Can you be committed to God when your family and friends have forsaken you and you left all alone holding life's journey on your own? How can you gauge the level of your commitment? How can you determine the level of your spiritual maturity? And this is the question, the elementary question that is being proposed to us in this text. How committed are you to the God that you know, the God that you pray to every night before you go to sleep? You know, you said it as a little child. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And yet we come Sunday after Sunday in this place lacking commitment, lacking true faith. We're lacking true faith. And that is the problem we have when we look at this text, that Jesus is challenging those who ought to know who God is, who ought to have faith in God. And here is one centurion, a centurion who did not necessarily ascribe to God's command as it relates to following Jesus the Christ. Here's a person who was seen as an oppressor in society. He was an outsider, and yet here he is seeking out the help of our Lord. Have you ever known people like that who are not connected with you in any kind of way, but they seem to care about you more than your own family or friends? I have family myself who I wouldn't even call if I needed $5 to borrow. I couldn't call them. But then there are some folk who have made themselves available to me, who I can call morning, noon, and night, and they will be there at my beck and call. And I always wondered, how is it that those who we love the most seem like they cherish us the least? How is it that those who say they are on our sides, when the challenges of life come, they leave us all alone. And here's this centurion who is not a follower of the way, a centurion who does not know really who Jesus is, but had only heard of his magnificent miracles. Here is this centurion walking along the way, and notice what's going on in his life. He's not calling for Jesus because his brothers or sisters, either one of them are dead. He's not calling for Jesus because of his wife. He's not calling for Jesus because he needs a new job. But he's calling for Jesus because his slave is ill. Isn't that something? Here he is, a man of great stature and great wealth, a man who have everything there is for life to offer him in his society, yet he is not praying for himself, but he is praying and calling Jesus to come help the least in his family, in his household. And that's what God is calling the church to do. God is saying that this is not the time for you to be so inwardly focused that the only thing you're concerned about is my pews, my carpet, my stained glass window. The only thing you're concerned about is my house, my car, my children. But God is saying, will you love me enough and have enough faith in me that when your house is not, when someone else's house is compromised, when someone else needs help, will you reach deep into your heart and pour out the same love that you would give your own children? This centurion was looking at his slave, recognizing that his slave was dear to him, recognizing that there was only one who could come and heal him. Here is the centurion recognizing that the only help he could fathom and find would be in the hands of the Master Jesus. Who do you run to in the times of trouble? Who do you call when it seems like all hope is gone? Do you call on mama and daddy? Do you call on your job? Do you turn to drugs, sex, and alcohol? Who are you calling to right now when it seems like you have no hope for tomorrow? Yet here's the centurion, one who is not a follower of the way, had enough sense to recognize that if I can only call on Jesus. Doesn't that remind you of the woman who had an issue of blood, who said that if I can only touch the hem of his garments, I will be made whole? Doesn't it remind you of a man who was at a pool one day and he had heard about Jesus and he said, Jesus, there's no one to put me in the pool. And look what Jesus said. He told him to stand up, pick up your mat and walk. And God is calling and challenging us to recognize that our faith cannot be in the political systems of the world. It cannot be in our jobs, our education, our employment, in our children. But you've got to recognize that your faith and your hope must be in the Lord Jesus Christ alone. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other grounds are sinking sand. Here is the centurion. And he recognizes it. Now notice the response of those who heard about his request. Notice that those who had heard that this man had sent some Jewish people to go and seek after Jesus, they told Jesus, listen to this man because he has done noble things for us. He has done noble things. He has built the synagogue just for us. Can you imagine that? Someone who does not trust God, who does not know Jesus, took time out of his busy schedule to come into Sandtown, saw that the roof was leaking and decided to take their own investments and fix it, saw that the grass across the street needed to be cut, took his own resources and got a lawnmower to cut the grass, saw that furniture needed to be given out to those in the community and reached into his own pockets and the pockets of his friends to make sure that they got the resources they needed. And when they stood before Jesus, Jesus did not have to ask anybody, but somebody stood up for their centurion. I come to tell somebody today that when you start doing God's work, you don't have to toot your own horn. You don't have to let everybody know what the left hand and the right hand is doing. But the only thing you have to do is live for God, and God will have a witness testify about what you've done. Is there a witness here that can testify about all the good things that people have done here at Ames Church without even getting a pat on the back? I think about Miss Selma Payne, all the good that she had done. She's long gone now, but I remember her. I think about Mr. Raymond Kane and all the good things that he has done. I remember him now. And the good news about this is that maybe some of you never met Raymond Kane. Some of you never met Miss Selma Payne. But because of their lives, it touched my life. And now I'm telling you about their lives. And that's what Jesus is saying that we ought to do. You ought to live a life such that when people see you, they'll recognize that there's a God in you that helps and lifts and motivates and encourages and inspires. Can I get about 5 of y'all who realize that only thing you need is just one word that can change your destiny? Look at what Jesus says to this man. He heals. The man says, listen, you don't have to tell Jesus to come and see about me. You just tell him to say the word, and I believe that God will already do what God has promised him he would do. I come to tell you right now that if you had that kind of faith, if you had the faith to believe the only thing I need is just one word. Look at your neighbor and say, the only thing I need is a word. Do you know that one word can change your destiny? One word can change your midnights. And today, the only thing I need this morning is just one word. I don't need the word that God has for you. I don't need the word that God has for Simmons Memorial. I don't need the word that God has for you. But I need the word that God has for me. And I can hear him saying, listen, this centurion must be crazy. Every time Jesus healed somebody, Jesus had to show up in a place. But the centurion recognized it long enough to know that if Jesus just spoke the word, it will happen. I come to tell somebody that when Jesus starts blessing you, there's no devil in hell that can block God's blessing. When Jesus starts blessing you, there's nothing that anyone can do to get in the way and block what God has for you. Just say the word. And I come to tell somebody today it's time to start speaking the word in your life. Start speaking the word on the job that you need. Just say, Lord, I need a job and I believe it's going to happen. I'm going to say the word. But check it out. Saying the word is just not good enough. But the man made a commitment by sending folk, an emissary to Jesus, to recognize that Jesus' word was his bond. He sent somebody. He had an action. You cannot just say a word for God to move and not show God that you're sincere and serious. Jesus saw the man's faith without him having to touch the servant, without him having to send a gift to the servant, without him having to call the servant's name. The only thing he did was say, because of your faith, you just go on back and everything is going to be all right. I come by to tell somebody here who's facing foreclosure. Somebody's here who is facing a negative word from the doctor. Someone here who don't know how you're going to pay your BGE. I come by to tell you that the only thing you need is to have faith the size of a grain of a mustard seed and watch God do the impossible. Don't you just sit there and wait for God to do some things. But there's going to be a time when you're going to have to take some action for God to do something. There's going to be some schooling you're going to have to go and retool yourself and get. There's going to be some times when you're going to have to let Pat and Leather hit the sidewalks and you go get your job. But I come to tell you that if you just say the word, if you take one step, God will take two. Who am I talking here to today? I'm talking to somebody who needs God to move right here and right now. I'm talking to somebody who's desperate for a move, who believes that if God said it, I can believe him, who believes that if God said it, I can hang my hat on it, who believes it so much that they start acting like they're blessed, even when they don't see any blessing, who believe it so much until they start acting like they got the job, even though they don't see a job interview. What am I trying to tell you today? It's time for you to walk in your destiny. If Jesus said you're healed, you got to believe it. If Jesus said that you are more than a conqueror, you've got to believe him. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man can come. Do you believe it? So when the enemy comes on you like a flood, don't you quit and don't you give up, but you keep on pressing. Look at somebody and say, I'm pressing. I'm pressing. I might be tired, but I'm pressing. Might feel like giving up, but I'm pressing. Is there anybody here who don't mind saying, I'm not going to give up on God because he's not giving up on me? So I leave you this. I'm through. I leave you with this one thought. I leave you with the thought that your faith is bigger than your reality. Your reality says that you have no money, but your faith says, I've got a Father. The cattle on 1,000 hills belong to him. And if it belongs to him, it belongs to me too. My faith says, my children may be wayward, but I have a Father who will change a wayward heart. My faith says, there's no air condition in here this morning, but my faith says, I believe God is going to show up because he's able to turn a furnace into an air conditioner. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, y'all remember the Hebrew boys thrown in a fiery furnace. They were supposed to be dead and consumed by the heat. But the Bible says that when King Nebuchadnezzar looked into the fiery furnace, he said, didn't I throw 3 men in the furnace? He looked again, but I see 4 there. There's a 4th man in the furnace. And he said, it looks like the Son of the living God. I come by here to tell you that when you have faith, you can be in the heat and God will turn it into an air conditioner. When you have faith, you can be in a lion's den, but the lions will not consume you. I got faith. Look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, neighbor, I've got faith to move a mountain. I got faith that can heal my body. I got faith. You know anybody here who don't mind saying, don't look at me now, but you just wait till God gets done with me. I will be more than a conqueror.